when you eat food, you always got to ask yourself, like, is this going to be good for my gut? Is this going to be good for my brain?
Hello, my billion-dollar baby, and welcome back to today's episode. We're going to dive deep with Dr. Eboni Cornish today. She's a functional medicine doctor, and we're going to dive into the root cause of your health issues. So listen closely. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm so excited to have you on. I really would love you to walk us through what functional medicine truly is.
All right. So basically, the breakdown, it's how your body works. So you hear all these medical terms, but if you take a step back, right, and you say, okay, how does my body function? So instead of giving you a diagnosis, I do like the detective work. You come in with a problem. I say, okay, why do you have that problem? So I might look at your brain. I might look at your gut, your diet, your lifestyle, your sleep habits. So it's like really doing some deep diving, which makes us different from traditional medicine, right? Because you go to traditional medicine, you have a problem, you get a drug. You go to a functional medicine doctor, you got a problem, and then we do the detective work to figure out why it exists and pretty much how to prevent you from having it again.
That sounds like the best way to deal with it.
I
Because
think
you're really going to
so.
the root. Yeah.
Exactly.
What are some areas you specialize in for health?
So I love looking at just the whole body. So my focus is really female hormones, male hormones. I also love the gut, and because the gut is like the center to everything. You always hear, oh, eat right, drink right, do right. But I'm really interested in how that impacts everything in our body. And I look into like infections. So people who might have Lyme disease or mold illness or kind of cool stuff like that. The people who usually when they come to my office, all right, they've been seen by so many other doctors and they're really trying to optimize their brain and their body. And so that's kind of what we focus on in my practice is brain and kind of overall body health.
One of the things I heard, which blew my mind once I started really focusing on my health, was every disease starts in the gut, right?
That is so true. Look at you. That is brilliant because people don't think of that. You know, we always hear that on television. How many commercials you got? That heartburn, indigestion. They're always singing some fun song about the gut and promoting a drug for it. But it's key because it's connected to your brain. All right. So I mean, who doesn't want to take care of their brain? And if you want to take care of your brain, you got to make sure you're giving your gut what it needs because it's your primary organ. It does so much for the body.
Yeah, it's like your whole mood, everything. What's interesting that I also was researching is so many people have a leaky gut, but then don't know they have a leaky gut, right?
And let me explain to you even what that means. Because I remember when I heard that term, I was like, oh my God, you got holes in there. But basically, when you eat foods, you always got to ask yourself, like, is this going to be good for my gut? And then if you don't know the answer, you got to think, okay, is this going to be good for my brain? All right. Because the more toxic foods you eat, may that be, processed foods, and we all know what the junk is, sugar or gluten. The more of that we intake, the more damage we're going to have to our gut. And the cool thing is, with the gut and the brain, it's kind of like a telephone tree, right? So the gut's like, hey, this is what's going on down here. We just ate, Doritos or, a sandwich full of rich pepperoni and good deliciousness, which can be bad for you. And the brain also gets that same signal because of that connection. And so over time, you eat more and more toxic foods, right? That gut becomes weakened. And so you start damaging the gut border. And so all that food and junk kind of leaks out. It leaks out the gut. And that's what's called leaky gut. And, poop stinks, right? That comes from our gut. Mm-hmm. It's full of waste. It's full of toxins. It's full of junk. And when you abuse your gut, all that nasty waste is going to leak out and go in places it doesn't belong, like your body and like your brain. So that's what that term leaky gut is. And then you start having like all kind of different symptoms, whether that be skin rashes or food allergies or just bloating. And that's because what's been done and abused is now going all over your body.
Yeah, so something that I kind of learned too is I found out maybe like a year or so ago that I have Hashimoto's. You've heard of it probably, the thyroid, which is autoimmune. And what was interesting is before that, I was having a lot of like panic attacks and anxiety before I knew. And so I stopped eating. Once I found out I had Hashimoto's, it wasn't so severe that they put me on medication yet, but they're like, you're the beginning symptoms of it. So I just completely cut out gluten. And since then, I haven't had any panic attacks or anxiety, which is wild because I'm like, some people don't even realize that moods or anxiety and these things can be from like health issues internally, not just like your mind or stress.
And you're so right and so on the money because when it comes to when we say that autoimmune, everybody hears that big term. And it just basically means your body, what the immune system does, it fights off the bad guys, right? So it fights off the viruses, the bacteria. But when it gets all confused, and I call it like overstimulated, a little tricky, it's like, oh, wait, what do I do now? I'm going to start fighting off you. So in your case, something in your body, you might have had genetic risk, like most people, or your epigenetics, which means what's going on around you, what you're doing, what's in the lifestyle, the food you eat, the toxins you have, causes your immune system to get confused and fight you off. So that's autoimmune, your immune system fighting you. And a lot of times when we develop it later on in life, not only is it due to toxins, but your gut, because a lot of those immune cells are in your gut. So with gluten, right, it's like, everyone's like, what is that? It's like wheat, the processed foods, unrefined wheats, they're toxic. And your body, immune cells, they fight it. They see it, they fight it. However, the bad thing is that gluten looks just like thyroid to that same immune system. So it started to say, hey, I'm going to fight that gluten. And then next thing you know, it's accidentally fighting off your thyroid too. So then, you start having fatigue and low energy and weight gain, all the things that kind of progress you down a whole new pathway because now you have this autoimmune process. So keep eating the gluten, the thyroid gets a little more, I like to look at it as irritable or angry because your immune cells continue to create those, what we call antibodies against it, all because of your gut. That's one big reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild. I feel like anxiety is such a huge thing nowadays. Do you have many patients that come in and have anxiety or panic attacks, and then you kind of see that the root can stem from so many different things?
That's one of the things we do in my job. We specialize in brain health and understanding the root cause of disease. So when it comes to things like psychiatry, I'm a functional medicine doctor, but I work with a lot of the psychiatrists at our clinic, including Dr. Eboni. So they look at the diagnoses and they may say, hey, this person has anxiety or depression. And they'll send them to me because we know it's not just a mood problem in most cases. There's something deeper going on because who wakes up and says, hey, I want to be anxious today. This is pretty amazing. I love feeling anxious or I love feeling sad. It's usually something deeper. And that's why you kind of got to change the way we frame those kind of conditions, right? So a lot of times, even with mood, because you mentioned anxiety and that's so popular, that it's triggered by not just your gut. That's why they call it irritable bowel disease, and they'll give you antidepressants at a GI, doctor, right? But there's direct links between the chemicals that make you anxious and your gut. So certain foods make you more anxious because they stimulate that chemical. Norepinephrine, serotonin, those are chemicals you might hear about. it gets all stimulated and then the mood is down. So when they say you are what you eat, it's absolutely right. But it's not just even the gut alone. You also have infections that people have, and they're failing all these meds. And then next thing you know, you do some research, and then the detective work shows, oh, wait, you've had long COVID, or you have Lyme, or you have chronic mono. So you start digging. But yeah, the root cause of brain health is really kind of body health. So you gotta ask those questions.
Wow. So do you see yourself a lot of times when someone has something, it's always like rooting back to how do you first heal the gut?
A lot, majority of the time, because that's like the cornerstone. So I make sure it's very simple. I don't care what the problem is. You come to my office, you may have tons of problems. And my first two questions are you sleeping and are you pooping? Because 9 times out of 10, one of those two things are going on and triggering whatever it is that's wrong with you. So when people are having bowel movements, or they might, be constipated, because I love talking about this kind of stuff, your gut is simple. It's like waste. You're like a backed up septic tank if you don't have regularity in your body. And so all that junk you have, all that stuff that you've eaten, taken, drank, all of it's still in that belly of yours. And it just continues to build up. And your body doesn't like it. And so you become inflamed. And that is inflammation is what triggers a lot of chronic conditions and illness. It all stems from inflammation. And the gut is a primary source. So I always stabilize the gut. That's like my thing.
Wow. What are some foods that you see that help you, and like foods that you see like cause maybe anxiety or inflammation?
So the one thing that causes inflammation and anxiety, we always know sugar, right? Sugar is so delicious to the body and to the brain, but it's so awful to the gut, and we know that. And I look at it from because I'm a mom, I have triplets, right? And they're all sugar-free for the most part until grandma comes around and she gives them something. But they don't eat sugar, because when they do, it is like World War III. They are angry, they're irritable, they're throwing stuff all around. And I see the same thing in my patients and even in myself. Like, just imagine if you have that moment, you got that like sugar rush, and then you crash afterwards. But then it's addictive and your body wants it again. And then once again, you crash after it wears off. It becomes this addiction. And we also know that it leads to yeast. And yeast is a beast. It's a bug that makes your gut all fat and makes you all bloated. And that's eats sugar. That's what it does. And so next thing you know, you're having yeast infections or big bloating bellies, and that one thing, inflammation. So definitely sugar. Cheese. You got to be careful with cheese, because cheese is addictive. It has this protein in it called casein, right? And it can lead to casein morphine. And you've heard the word morphine, right? Like morphine, the drug. And it also stimulates that same part of the brain that heroin stimulates, the dopamine. So you get addicted. Yeah, I didn't know that. When I found that out, I was like, oh, really? That's why cheese is so delicious. You don't see animals in the
I
wild.
know so many
eating cheese.
people that are addicted.
Yeah,
I know my sister's addicted to cheese.
It's addictive. I mean, it is serious, because that case of morphine, that's what it is. It stimulates the brain, and then you're like, oh, I want more, I want more. And next thing you know, your gut is, you have all this mucus, you have all these allergies, you're sneezing, runny nose, you're bloated, because, it's from milk, yeah, but it also has a lot of added properties and derivatives in it. So that's another thing. You gotta watch the addiction to sugar and the addiction to cheese. All right. Now, if you want to get fancy and easy, berries. Berries are awesome. Berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. You go ahead, they give you good, things to help with your brain, help you think, help you get your energy up. And then the greens. You know, you probably hear people do green smoothies. So the spinach, the kale, they're all really good for your, and omega, like fish, like salmon, wild caught. Very great for both brain health and for your gut health.
What do you think about eating meat?
I think you should make sure if you're eating meat that it's lean meat and that it's antibiotic free. I tend to, like more kind of pescatarian lifestyle. I'm good as long as it's not like those big, meatier fish because they are rich in heavy metals and mercury, like swordfish and things of that nature. But like the wild caught fish, like, salmon is great. Also, things like sardines are wonderful, branzino, like things like that that are great omegas. They're great for the brain. I also think you can do fish with chicken and things like turkey. Red meat, it depends, right? Because you have so many different people do the carnivore diet and they're really red meat heavy. But there are a lot of other people who might have problems due to maybe cholesterol issues or red meat allergies. That's really out there right now, called alpha gal. Some people are allergic to red meat and don't know it. So I think just making it balanced. But if you make sure, I'm not a big fan of carnivore only at all, because I think you need also the veggies. You need the veggies. You need to balance your fruits and the meat, as well. But be very careful in your selections.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Too much of anything is not good, right? If you only have that. Like, wasn't it Steve Jobs that did like a full fruit diet? I'm like, that's
Oh
wild.
my God. I have people do that in my office. They'll come and they'll do fruit diets, or they'll do my least favorite, which is like juice fast. Because those are like terrible. It's like all sugar. You're not doing anything. You might be losing some water, but you're not healthier. You're not healthier for it. You
Wow.
got to balance it.
So I'm so curious. You obviously probably eat very healthy, and your kids do, you said too, if they're not really eating much sugar. So what are the three, is the three most important things is no sugar? Do you guys have dairy and gluten, or no gluten and
So
dairy?
we are no sugar, absolutely, for them, at all, unless it's grandma. So no sugar. We are dairy free because of the whole mucus thing. And then they were young, they were born early. So sometimes even in adults who may have been premature or younger, they were born earlier, you're going to have higher risk of allergies. Or people, we know people who have eczema, that's usually allergy driven. And so things like dairy can trigger allergies and mucus. So we don't do dairy in the house either. And we try to limit the process. So we definitely limit gluten quite a bit. We're not 100% gluten-free. One of my children, she's gluten-free, one of them. But I definitely limit it. But I know, and you will know, there could be some foods that if you remove them, even for a week, and you add them back, you're going to notice a change. You're definitely going to notice a positive change when you remove them. And then you probably don't even realize it until you feel bad after adding them back in. That's kind of what happened to me when I made my healthy lifestyle changes.
Yeah, I did gluten-free and dairy-free for a while. Like, I've done gluten-free for a year now, but I did dairy-free for 9 months. And then I introduced dairy again. And then I started having like almost like little patches of dry skin come up. Like, I don't know if it's eczema or something. It's kind of gone down now. I don't know if my body's getting used to it again. But the sugar is the hard one. And then I realized there's a lot of gluten-free breads have a lot of sugar in them.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Oh, God.
So that's what makes it hard.
It is, because you think you're doing, the best thing. So you're going to spend $8 for that loaf of bread or $10 for that box of cereal or something that says gluten-free. And then you look at all the additional ingredients, and some of them are just as toxic as gluten. And I definitely know with sugar, it is an addiction. It's addiction for most people because of the fact that it feeds the bugs in our gut, the bad ones. And so their hunger is driving your addiction. The fact that you're treating and eating food that feeds yeast is going to drive your brain to want to crave more sugar. And then when that wears off, the hunger is going to go back up for those organisms in our gut. I mean, it's really that basic. And not only that, sugar is such a fake sense of energy. So our body's like, oh, yeah, this is great. And when you crash afterwards, you want to get that high again. So it is a true addiction. And I look at it as a 12-step program. You got to take a 12-step program to get off sugar. So you try very slowly every day to find some good substitutes for it.
Because you're okay with like natural sugar, like things in fruit?
Oh yeah, I'm okay with natural sugar. I'm okay with honey. I'm definitely okay. I'm okay with stevia, because it's plant-based. So I am. And even xylitol on occasion, I'm okay with that. Agave with moderation, totally fine. But it's just those things that's why it's so addicting, is because of what they add to those products that have a lot of sugar in them. Like those delicious drinks we might get at Starbucks, or those desserts and candies. The companies know what they're doing, because when they're trying to get us addicted to this, they know what they're doing. But it does damage the gut and the brain in terrible ways.
What are some what are some sugars to look out for when someone looks at ingredients to know which ones are good and which ones are bad?
High fructose corn syrup. That is the main thing. That's what you need to look for. Even lactose, surprisingly enough, lactose-free, think always of dairy, but lactose is also considered in the sugar family, okay? Some of those good ones are things like stevia. I'm looking for that. Xylitol, that's another good form of sugar. So just kind of reading the labels, just being very careful with your selection. So those are like the big ones, but definitely the high fructose corn syrup. And sorbitol, that's another really bad one. That's going to damage that gut.
Amazing. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would love to like shine light on with your practice?
Oh my God, so much. Well, tell me what you think. Your viewers want to know. They want to know about girl stuff. They want to know about brain mood stuff. Whatever you think they want to know.
A good one would be to get into hormones, because I don't think people realize how important that is also. I know you touched on that a little bit.
Like hormones, thyroid. We talk about hormones. We can talk about sleep. That's another big one. People don't know how important sleep is. But yeah, we can talk about hormones, and that all connects. So you can just keep it flowing.
Yeah, so how does someone know when they have a hormone imbalance? What are like some things that come up to show you that you might have one?
It's very basic. If you're sitting around and you're like more tired than normal, like you're falling asleep, you're getting, you're trying to do your activities, you might even need to take breaks. Or even if you find yourself crashing like midday, you get that like 3 p.m. crash, that could be something going on with your hormones, right? Or if you find yourself racing to the bathroom, multiple times a day, hormone problem. Or, that could be problems with your sugar. You might want to say, hey, is something wrong? Am I eating too much sugar? Do I have a higher risk of something like diabetes? You're running to the bathroom all the time. You can't hold your water. Or it could be other hormone problems that affect your kidneys that need to be evaluated. If you find yourself really tired all the time, or in that midday crash, that could be like we were talking about earlier, your thyroid. Because your thyroid helps with everything. It helps with metabolism. It helps with your energy. It helps keeps the pounds off, right? It keeps your mood happy. That can definitely be a hormone issue with that. Or let's say you don't have libido, right? You're sitting around, you're not interested in going out, you're not, that could be a male or a female hormone problem. That can happen at any age. Low libido, all right? Weight gain. You eat rocks and paper. I mean, you do every intermittent fasting, you try every diet out there, and you just cannot lose the pounds. You try fasting, you just, that weight stays on it, or in fact, you might get even more weight put on you. That can be problems with your hormones, like your thyroid. That could be a problem due to your hormone called your stress hormone, your adrenaline, your cortisol. So that's something also to think about. Or better yet, if you're missing your menstrual cycle, you go months without having a period, or you have periods every 2 weeks. That needs to be balanced, because hormone health is important for your brain to function properly. You know, if you don't have optimal hormone health, it's like trying to use a cell phone without a battery. You're not gonna just sit around here and, how addicted are we to our phones, right? You're never gonna want to use your phone unless it's charged. But if you're having a hormone problem, your brain isn't charged. And the last sign is when you're having hair. Like, I have a lot of my female patients, they come and they say, I'm getting facial hair. I got a big mustache growing, or, I'm getting chin hair. I got to get waxed every other week. That could be problems with too much testosterone in women. So
Wow.
definitely. Yeah.
I'm getting a hormone test right now, the Dutch test.
Rod.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, is another big way to know you have a hormone imbalance if you have very like cramping during your periods. Like I have one friend that she just like goes and like has to be bedridden during her periods. I'm like, Jesus, like she's like in her bed the whole time.
Yes, that can definitely be a hormone problem, but the hormone progesterone, that's a female hormone. That's kind of like we're fortunate to have progesterone because it makes us feel real good. Like, men are fortunate to have testosterone. We have it too, but we also have that progesterone. It keeps us relaxed, it makes us sleep. And when we have really bad periods or really bad PMS, it's usually because that progesterone is way too low. And a lot of times when you give women just a little bit of progesterone during their period, part of their cycle, they start feeling much better. And those cramps are down, that moodiness, that PMS goes away. But definitely progesterone needs to be checked in any woman. I don't care how old you are, if you're having really bad menstrual cycles. And also the hormone estrogen, because estrogen, when you have too much of it, you start having a lot of heavy periods. You're like really uncomfortable. You also can have brain fog, right? And your mood. Your mood can also be imbalanced with estrogen, that other female hormone. So you definitely need to get a hormone check if you're having any problems during that time of the month. Or even if you're just having fatigue or brain fog, you need to get that checked.
What about with sleep? Like, is it normal to like for me, I wake up like 2 times a night to go to the bathroom, but I don't even really have to go. I just like wake up and it's like a natural thing, and I kind of just like go to the bathroom. I don't know why.
I
But is that
know.
normal?
Do you go and you go right back to bed?
Pretty much, yeah. But I used to,
Yeah.
when I was younger, I used to sleep the entire night and not wake up. I miss those days.
Yeah. The goal really is to sleep for 7 to 8 hours continuously, because that's like functioning at 100%. The analogy I love is the cell phone analogy, because when you're not sleeping that 7 to 8 hours, or you're sleeping and you're waking up throughout the night, it's like your cell phone's on 50% battery. That's your brain. You're at 50% of your reserve. And who's going to want to go out the house like that? Right? Because anytime you interrupt your sleep pattern, your brain wakes up. And even though you might have your eyes closed, you might think you're getting into a deep REM sleep. It takes time to get back there. So it's not optimal to wake up throughout the night. The goal is 7 hours. And when you have that minimally, you'll see a difference kind of in how you are functioning, how your brain functions in the morning. I always tell patients, if you're having that problem or you're waking up, make sure your phone's on airplane mode, because
I
those
do that.
electronic magnetic frequencies are huge. That it's a dark place, no noises, no TVs, no laptops. I call it like an oasis bedroom. And then there are some cool things you can do, like grounding. It's like the equivalent of if you were out on the beach, right, without your shoes on, walking around on the sand. That's called grounding. You can do that in your bedroom as well and basically neutralize all the frequencies, like your Wi-Fi is off, sometimes temporarily turning your router off. That kind of neutralizes your bedroom. And you'll sleep through the night. I learned that, myself using Alexa. I was using my Alexa to sleep for a while, and I was waking up. I was waking up like 2 or 3 times, and I would go back to sleep, and I would wake back up. And I didn't find that I was as rested until I slept all night long. I didn't know I had a problem. And then I turned my Wi-Fi off, and I was like, oh, wait, this is how you should feel. You should feel this refreshed. Yeah. And it does a lot to your brain. You got to optimize your brain health by getting that good sleep.
Yeah, I'm so weird about the phone radiation. If it's like charging, I put it away from me, or I put on airplane mode as many times as I can in a day if I don't need to use it. And then, some people will keep it next to them the whole time. I put it somewhere completely not touching me. A lot of the time I'll put it on the floor or put it somewhere else unless I need it for something. Because It's crazy. It does affect you a lot.
It does. And then you have that, right, that want to look at it, right? And I'm thinking to myself, who really needs to call me while I'm sleeping? Is it that important, right? If it is, I'm sorry. I'm not on call for you 24 hours a day. Nothing's more important to me than my brain. Nothing else. Because the brain and my gut, if I'm not doing those right, then I'm not worth helping anyone. I can't help anyone. So sleep is key for that. It's just those little tricks. And that's great that you do that, because I know so many of my patients argue with me. They're like, oh, I can't sleep on airplane mode. That's my alarm. I'm like, that doesn't add up. That you can still have an alarm, number one. But number two, you don't need your phone for an alarm. You can use a regular. They make alarm clocks. So it's just a way to keep your brain kind of calm and to keep you at peace through the night. That's what you need to have a good day the next morning.
Thank you so much. I think there's so many people on here that are going to listen to this that are going to want to see you. So tell us where we can find you and how they can go about contacting you to make an appointment with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was really awesome. If you feel like there's something going on, right? You don't know. If you have health questions, you think something might have sound familiar, right? And you don't know where to go, you can look online, because I think Instagram is a great source if you find well-vetted experts. And my handle is at Dr. Eboni Cornish. And then on TikTok, at Dr. Eboni Cornish, all one word, EBONICORNISH. And I just give tips on everything, on different types of health and just getting better overall.
Yeah, your page is amazing. That's how I found you. So everyone needs to go follow you and learn so many great things that you post. And I appreciate you for coming on. I felt like I got a lot of valuable information myself, so I know the listeners will too.
Oh, wonderful. And I would always love to come back if you have another health question or just want to chit chat about mood or life or whatever it is, maybe. I'm here. I mean, you always got to have someone in your backyard. Yeah, so now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for hopping on, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my $1 billion baby, for coming back every week and listening to the episodes. I appreciate you so much with your kind comments and the things you have to say. I read all of them, and please subscribe and let me know what you want to hear next week. Love you all.